guys, welcome to Repitch, where we revisit, redo, and review. What? No, welcome to Repitch, where we revisit, review, and redo movies. I'm your host Richard, and this is David.
Hey guys.
Second time it works the best. And today, David, what are we talking about?
We're bringing you a repitch of The Kingsman from.
All right, so you have no idea how difficult it was to figure out which Kingsman because it's this third one, but it's a prequel, and they're all called The Kingsman.
Right.
So which one is this, David?
So this is the prequel movie. This is the third one, which is the prequel movie.
God, it's.
So they decided to some reason go back in time and make a new movie instead of making Kingsman 3, which I'm dying to see. Hopefully they get on that.
Did you like Kingsman 2? I mean, like side note, but not really side note.
Yeah, it was whatever. I didn't enjoy it because the first one was so like.
Honestly, I think it changed the way we see action today, especially action scenes.
Yeah.
It is, that church scene and the fighting in the bar. You guys know exactly what I'm talking about. It's iconic. Even today in action movies or action fights, like you see that, the camera whipping and stuff like that. Like, it's iconic.
No, I think Matthew Vaughn, he has mastered the action scenes so well.
Yeah.
Like, even in Kick-Ass, all the stuff
so
that he
good.
does, so great.
Not the biggest fan of the movies, but the action scenes are great.
Yeah. I think Matthew Vaughn does a great job with those. He's also done a few like X-Men movies, not the great ones.
He's done First Class. That's crazy.
Yeah. The Kingsman, not the Kingsman. So the Kingsman is the prequel movie. Came out back in 2021 in December.
And like even when it came out, which is a crazy thing because it was supposed to come out 3 years before that.
Yep.
But the world went to hell when the pandemic hit, and it was in limbo. And it came out, and correct me if I'm wrong, it didn't do so well, right?
No, it didn't. But and I think that's why it quickly went into streaming. I remember seeing it on streaming maybe not even a month after it came out in theaters.
Yeah. And like, I'm sure people blame it's the pandemic. People don't want to go out to theaters.
Yeah.
And I'm sure there is like a sliver of truth to that. But I mean, like, we'll talk about it in our review.
Yeah.
But I feel like,
if you guys,
this movie's not the best.
If you want the numbers actually right here.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So, on opening weekend, it did about 5.9 million.
That's it.
Yeah.
Wait, that's insanely low.
Yep. Domestically, they did 37 mil. Internationally, they did 83 mil, which is fine.
Wait, what's the budget for this? I'm terrified to ask.
Yeah. So worldwide, it was about 121 mil they raked in, but production budget was about 100 mil. So,
And David, they held on to this movie for 3 years, and gosh knows how much money they've. Oh, that is rough.
And the other rough part is I think there were so many holes in the movie itself. It was a rough one. We'll get into that in a bit, but
yeah. But yeah, we usually talk about the good, the bad, then we go over the review. So let's talk about the good.
Yeah,
because
there
was some good stuff.
Before we go into it, let me just give a quick tagline of the movie for people who may not
of course.
really know what the movie's about. So the movie tagline for this one was in the early years of the 20th century, the Kingsman Agency is formed to stand against the cabal plotting a war to wipe out millions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that pretty much sums up my thought. But let's talk about. I mean, are you good? Is there anything else we'll talk about?
That's good. We could let's get into it.
All right, let's talk about the good. One thing that's I will maybe go back and forth and see how it is. But one thing that I personally really liked about almost all the Kingsmen, I love how they bring all these old white guys and making them action stars, like Ray Ralph Fiennes, him as Voldemort. Mm-hmm. He was in the James Bond movies and stuff like that. And he has some pretty great action scenes in this.
I agree. I do agree. The whole ending portion of it, definitely a lot of that part where they're on the mountain.
Oh yeah,
that action part was pretty crazy. And part where he's like fighting the Russian guy, Rasputin.
Rasputin,
Yeah.
yeah, and he was surprisingly good. I'm like, granted, he was sad and mopey, but like, yeah, I liked how he was. That was pretty great. And like, that brings up to the next point. Is like, there's some like really good casting in this. Like, the other supporting actors. At Repitch, I never know how to pronounce names, so I'm just gonna stick with the characters' names in the character, like Polly, the female interest in this, and Shola, is he a butler? I don't know how to describe him.
I guess so. Like, I guess
The right hand
yeah.
man of Oxford. They're both really good in this. I love the chemistry. Even other actors in this is not terrible. Like Rasputin. Oh my goodness,
He was great. Reese Ifans.
I love this guy. He's in one of my favorite movies, The Replacement, and he's just such a quirky weirdo.
He's the kicker.
Yeah, and like they just definitely tell him to go. Rasputin in real life is this insane person. Just do whatever you want, and he went balls to the walls, crazy in this, and I loved it.
It was great. I think his performance was great, and I think that's one of the bright sides of the movie. The casting, the actors were all great. I think they played their parts very, very well. Yeah.
You talked about the end scene. That was pretty good. One scene, honest, that was captivating, that if you were to isolate this scene just by itself, I'm sure you know what I'm talking about, and make it into its own movie, it would do amazing. It's when Conrad is out in the trenches in the middle of the night, and they don't want to make too much noises, and him and the Germans are fighting together.
Yeah.
My goodness, it is so, like, again, spoiler episode or whatever, but like when they're just fighting each other, and oh gosh, and like all hell breaks loose. Conrad's the only survivor. He finds the spy, and he's just weeping because he realized everything that his father has been warning him the whole time is right.
Yep.
Bright early in the morning, he carries the survivor, runs back, gets exploded. The survivor's dead. He wants to get back, but in the end, he gets shot down by his own ally. I'm like, oh, you know how I love tragic deaths, and it is so it's so beautiful. I'm like, I love that part. Honestly, like
dark.
It's dark, but it's really good, is it not? I'm like, even the funeral and the wake, I was like, wow.
No, it added a whole nother depth to the movie for sure.
It did.
And it gave Ralph Fiennes' character so much more purpose. For sure.
It did. Like, he's not only mourning the death of his wife the whole time, but now he's mourning the death of his son too.
Yep.
So good. I really enjoyed that scene. Just the whole, like, as dark as it was, like, it's my cup of tea for sure.
No, I think like, for me personally, I do wish they might have kept him around, so that I did want to see him to be part of the Kingsman, but I see with the story how it went, it works very well with it.
To be honest, I wasn't a big fan of him, so when he died, I was like, nice. But like, story wise, I know what you mean. It's just like, oh, okay, I guess he's dead now. It was just, you know what it was? The first time watching this, like I told you guys before, I've been only watching movies on airplanes for some reason. It's like that's the only time I have time. And watching the first time, I was just really annoyed and mad because this movie is 2 hours long. I don't want to complain, but watching the second time, it was a lot better. I enjoyed it a lot more for some reason.
No, I think the second time around too, I was able to enjoy it more. First time I saw it, I think it felt like it dragged for some reason for me.
It did. It's okay. We're going to like bad territory, but like we're going to talk about a drag definitely. Yeah. But first, anything else that stuck out to you that was good?
Honestly, I really love the backstory for all this. I'm a huge when it comes to like history stuff, history movies. I love it, and I love it when there's like fictional revisionist history,
like an alternate reality of this is what happened at World War I.
Exactly. And this was everything that I would have wanted in that kind of like a genre of movie. So I think they had a great backstory and concept to build this world in. Now, granted, it's like 1920s World War One. For that, they had some pretty cool gadgets.
They did, limited in time. Yeah. They had that really ghetto-looking parachute, which was pretty funny. And it was like when you think of the Kingsman, you think of two things, like technology, like the combats and stuff. Three things, like the fighting, the technology, and the style. Like they look dope. They look dapper. Like the movies were so, the clothing was so like iconic that they would actually sell clothing from a store. Like that's how much people liked it.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, clothing wise, I thought everything was they're everyone's very British. It's like
Oh yeah,
it's-
it is.
yeah.
It is.
I was like, oh, I need a strong cup of tea. It's just like, oh my god, this is so British.
I think I remember after seeing the first one,
Yeah.
with Eggsy and all that.
Uh-huh.
I think my friends couldn't stop saying "bruv" for a while.
Yeah. Modern day English slang. But yeah, anything else that's good before we rip this movie to not shreds, but just like maybe nitty gritty, maybe nitpick, maybe just real statements. But anything else that you liked about this?
Not much else. Again, just the acting was great. I think the acting was spot on for a lot of the characters. Action was good, and again, the backstory and the world that they were building. I think I really enjoyed all that stuff. But other than that, not too much.
Yeah. All right, David. Let's dig our teeth in and just really go into why do you think this movie felt like a drag?
Now, I feel like this could have been a TV series.
I totally. If this was a TV series, I feel like it would have been amazing. But what do you mean by that?
Now, because there's a lot of things happening.
Yeah.
And it felt like it wasn't touched. Like nothing was fully answered. And now if you saw like the after credit scene, the post credit stuff, I see.
That's a post credit scene?
Yeah.
I didn't even watch.
Yeah. So it's pretty obvious that Matthew Vaughn wants to continue this story, this side of the Kingsman.
I mean, there's a war too, so let's see where that goes.
Yeah, exactly. So with that, I think the story kind of fell flat. A lot of parts were like I wanted the questions, closure, questions answered. It didn't really happen, or they just kind of like brushed over things too quickly.
No, I totally agree. Is there like a specific question that you thought you wanted closure with?
Off the top of my head, I couldn't really.
No,
yeah.
But I totally agree because like this movie, every movie, everything has 3 acts. Each act I felt like should have been and could have been its own movie in itself.
Yeah.
And it's like it's a kind of like especially if you're watching. I can't imagine watching this in theaters. I think
no,
because I feel like the tonal whiplash of your son dying in the World War II trenches, then you're up in the mountain fighting with a goat. It's very weird tonally. You know what I mean? It's just like, whoa, the whiplash. But like, I think maybe because I watched it at home and I was able to take breaks and do other things in between, made it a lot more like a lot more like, okay, I could actually enjoy this a little bit more.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree with you what you're saying on that. The acts felt like they could have been separate movies in itself.
Definitely.
Because I genuinely thought Rasputin was going to be the bad guy throughout this whole movie.
Yo, okay, we're going there. Every poster, like I understand, like, oh, there's a hidden villain, like, oh, he's a Scottish person because the British has been oppressing them for over 70 years. There is actually,
I'm sorry, that annoyed me.
That's like an actual legitimate reason, and it's so lame. And like, because every poster, Rasputin's right there, like he's supposed to be the bad guy, and this ninja died with a headshot wound. Like, honestly, like it's like in real life. There's stories and myths of Rasputin being hung, burnt, dragged, and drowned, but he wouldn't die. I seriously thought he's gonna come back in the end to be the villain.
That would have been crazy. I'll say this: their story, what they did with Rasputin, and how they fit in the actual stories about him, was great. Because like, if you guys know a little bit about Rasputin, how he actually died, or like how people tried to kill him, was like, one of the stories is that he went to dinner with a group of gentlemen. Actually, that's what it is.
Interesting.
And they poisoned him. And that's exactly what happened in the movie. So they kind of like they fit that made the Kingsman, made Ralph Fiennes and his group like the gentlemen in that side of things. And
but Rasputin, he's such an interesting, weird character that like you hate but you want to watch more of. but he dies in the first act, and like you're ending up with this. Who is this mysterious Scottish person? Like, oh, look, it was the general's sidekick the whole time. Oh,
Mm-mm.
I was so disappointed
Yeah.
at that. Like when up to that part where they were fought the bad guy, the Scottish guy in the end. I don't know his name. It was pretty good. I like the whole parachuting scene, him trying to climb up the mountain, him fighting the giant. Great humor. I loved how Shola, flung off from the elevator and chopped the guy's head off. Great scene. But then he fights the Scotsman, and it's just like, I'm not interested. It's kind of boring. And how does the Scotsman get? How does he find his demise? The freaking goat. Just like, it's so dumb.
Yeah, I had a issue with him becoming the villain. Mainly because it was supposed to be that big twist, like
Yeah.
but I feel like he himself as that side character, he wasn't in it enough for us to be like that's the great twist. Oh, that's a huge surprise.
Exactly.
You forget about him after like the first second.
The first time seeing him, I'm like, who is this white guy? that's literally what, and they had to literally show you the clips where he was because you had no idea who he was. He's like, oh, okay, I guess. I'm like, that's not that exciting, but sure.
Seriously. And yeah, so that was one issue I took with that as him being it.
Yeah.
I think it would have worked if they brought him into it a lot more. Like if this character came out, saw him in, like we got to see him talking to the Ralph Fiennes a bit more, or like the other characters a bit more, be more involved, and then that twist came, much more impactful in my opinion.
The character that he was before the bad guy in the end, he was forgettable, so it wasn't impactful at all.
Yeah, exactly. That's the problem.
Yeah.
Now I know we were talking about like the length of this and how it dragged. One thing I will note is that this movie feels like it begins 40 minutes into it.
It does. Oh my! It's so slow.
Right.
Like, if you blindfolded me and made me watch this, I would not think this was a sequel to Kingsman. This feels completely foreign.
Yep.
I'd be like, wait, and you told me that? Oh, that was a Kingsman prequel. I'm like, what? Did someone different directed? No, it's the same guy, and he actually co-wrote the script too. I'm like, why? What? You sure? Like, it's so weird. Like, I don't. Hey, but again, this movie's over 2 hours long, which I don't think it needed to be, honestly.
Right.
Like, you could make the case, but like I think a lot of stuff could have been cut out.
No, I agree with you on that. This is one of the few movies, and unfortunately, I was sad when I came to this because I don't really say this a lot, but it's one of those movies where I was like, when is it gonna end?
Brother, yes, I completely agree. I'm like, yo, it feels like it's been 5 hours. It feels like I've been binge watching a series because again, a lot has happened, and it doesn't hook you for like, oh, I want to watch more. Like, oh, what's gonna happen? It's just like each act is kind of just like very pitter patter. It's like kind of slow and sad, and like then he picks back up again. I'm just exhausted in the end.
Yeah. Now, one other thing I did take issue with it. I feel like it was just kind of an easy write-off, where Ralph Fiennes' character's leg gets healed. I was like, weird. Oh my gosh, why did you do
that? I thought the father was, it was Rasputin does this weird blood magic. I don't know what you call it. And just like, and his leg is healed and he could fight again. I understand that part, but like the whole time I thought the father was going to die. And I thought Conrad is going to be the new. But I mean, what do you think about that, David? Because like,
No, I think it was just
lost the words.
It was just too easy. It was simple writing. Like they just wanted to make. I mean, obviously, I think they were making Ralph Fiennes the main character, and they wanted to somehow bring his character back to life.
Yeah, and
they decided that this was the best way with Rasputin massaging his leg.
Jeez, and it felt like such a cop out. That's what it was. Like, oh shoot, we gave this guy a limp. You know what this was like? This is like Batman, the third movie with Christian Bale. Christian Bale, where Batman has a bad knee. What are we gonna do? Oh. Give him a brace. I'm like, what? This magical brace allows him to kick a brick wall fine. That's exactly what it feels like, but much weirder at the same
Right.
point.
Like, it doesn't make sense.
It doesn't make
Like,
sense.
at least that one with Christian Bale is like, oh, it's like a brace that's gonna help you. But this is just like, this guy's putting a spell on your leg and now you're just better.
And then he wants to drown you. I'm just like, bro, Rasputin, what are you doing here? But yeah. You know, who I had a huge issue with?
Who's that?
I really did not like Conrad,
Oh, you
Ralph
didn't.
Fiennes' son. I mean, I don't know if you're supposed to hate him, but like, my favorite part was him suffering and dying, clearly.
My
But like,
gosh.
he was such a whiny little prick the whole time. Like, Daddy, I want to go to war. I want to serve my country, which is a noble deed. And tonally, it's kind of weird, this movie. It's not picking a lane. Like, do you want, like, the whole time the father's like, you got to fight. The son's like, no, he can't fight. The son goes out to war and he dies. Like, oh, you shouldn't fight. But in the end, the father kills the bad guy. This is what my son would have wanted. You should fight in this war. It's just, I'm like, the whole time, I'm like, yo, I want this kid to die. And he did.
my
Just like, no. So let's rephrase that. I did not like him. I think the whole time I'm like, bro, you served your country. Like, the father's right. Like, yo, you are part of this international spy team where you're part of killing this like huge level, and you want to go out to, bro. Like, I don't understand. He's supposed to be like what 18, 19 years
Yeah.
old in this movie, and I'm like, bro, I don't know. It just, I felt like
No,
it hit.
you're right. He was just being a child. Like,
Yeah, and I don't know. I don't know if I should hate, like, it's like it's good writing because I hate him because you're supposed to not like him, or it's just you know what I mean?
that's true. No, that's a good question. But I think
It's like,
I agree with you. I think in this movie, in this story, I feel like they could have given him a little bit more.
100%. I agree. Like,
Now, not to say
if
that
they-
he didn't have, maybe he could have had a little more depth, but
it was, you know what? His reasoning was very generic.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, I don't want people to call me a coward. I wanna medal. But if you told me like he wants, like, his goal is like, hey, I want to go to war so I could save little kids, so other kids can be saved and other people's mothers don't have to die like my mom died in the war. If you were to wove that in, I'm like, yo, that's pretty dope. I like that.
agreed.
And like, imagine him dying for someone's mother. Like, how if he takes a bullet for someone's mom that almost get killed. Like, oh, that'd be so poetic.
Right.
But like, it's so. I mean, I think that's one of the issues we talked about before we start recording is that there's so many good stuff, but they only touch upon it.
Yeah.
It's only like, here's a little bit of that. Like, oh, that'd been really cool. That's really awesome. Like, oh, for some reason, Stalin is in this movie. Like, but we see like 10 seconds of him, and here's that, here's this, and it's just like, oh wow, a lot like, it would have been a better TV show.
Yeah, no, I think as a TV show, they would have had a lot more room to work with, a lot more things to draw out, more characters to touch upon. I totally
Definitely.
agree. Now, that is actually another issue I had. Not just the story, they touched upon like surface level things and like brushed off things, but there were some great actors that did not get fully used.
Yeah.
Mainly for
What
me,
a-
it's Stanley Tucci and
Yeah.
Aaron Taylor Johnson, who's kick-ass.
He was in this.
exactly.
Oh, he was. I'm like,
Completely wasted. Completely wasted.
But Dave, he shows up in the end and he's Lancelot. I don't know why they'll choose him because he literally does nothing in this movie.
All he did was switch places with the son and
And just
deliver
a letter.
deliver the message that his son died.
I mean, maybe in the sequel they're planning, oh, he's gonna be really dope. Don't you just
I
you
mean,
wait. Like, maybe
I feel like anybody with the Lancelot name or Galahad, I think those two characters are
Yeah.
the cooler ones. But I mean, that's why I'm saying, like, Matthew Vaughn really, I think he really tried to make this into a huge setup movie.
and it felt like that.
Yeah.
I mean, you mentioned before, being a history buff, you like the history. But for me personally, I felt very. I know this is not exactly 1-to-1 with the way history works, but I kind of felt not offended, but just weirded out by like,
Mhm.
because the Great War, War One actually happened. Millions of people did die, and it's like, oh, it was the plot of this Scottish shepherd up in the mountain, and he had this plan the whole time, which is a dumb plan. I'm like, your only reason is because your mom and dad lost their mill. I'm like, really? Like, come on, make some money, something more diabolical, like. But like, I don't know. For me, I feel kind of this is nitpicky for sure, but like kind of iffy with like, no, let's stick to exactly what happens in World War One, but just make it our own. I just felt iffy about that.
Oh, okay. I gotcha.
Yeah.
Actually, you say you didn't watch the post credit scene, right?
And then what's the post credits?
So
what happens?
Post credit is actually two new villains pop up. We see Stalin, and then he gets introduced to Adolf Hitler.
I'm so sorry. What? Okay.
Yep. That's how it ends.
Who plays Hitler?
Actually, I'm not even sure who. I think it's not a big name guy.
That is. I mean, that would be pretty great. Yo, I would watch. I would rather watch a sequel than this prequel to this movie.
Yeah. Oh man.
I mean,
there's.
Yeah, I mean, David, you said you had. I mean, I heard a little bit about your repitch about what you want to do with this movie, but like as I was watching this originally this was supposed to be my movie, but I let you have it because I feel like you had something. But what I was thinking is I thought it'd be really cool if Conrad was actually Ralph Fiennes when he was younger, and this is him building up to the man he is before World War II.
That would be a fun one. That's almost kind of like this. I know you probably didn't watch Westworld. But it's like that a double. So Westworld in season 1, they do this thing where it's like a double timeline. You see one character as like you don't know though. You don't know that it's different timelines. So like one character, and then there's this other character who's really dark. One guy's a good guy, and then you come to the end and you realize it's the same guy. He just turned dark. It's crazy.
I wasn't thinking that, but like,
it's kind of like, I get your idea.
Seeing the person he became today, something like that. I thought that'd be really cool.
Interesting.
Yeah, I mean, is there any other things that you had any critiques about this movie?
No, I think those are the main things I had issue with.
One thing we do here at Repitch, David, what I love to do is we don't just complain. We don't just whine about movies and nitpicky, but we are fixers. We are men that's going to fix problems. So
yes.
David, what this is our 90th episode, guys. We've done this 90 times. No, we haven't pitched 90, over 50 pitches.
Yes.
So David.
I will admit, this was a pretty tough one to repitch, mainly because I think it was hard because I really tried to stick with history with it.
Okay.
But now I decided to scrap what the Kingsman movie did and go to a different time period altogether.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
So this is my tagline right now.
Okay.
So in the late 5th century, a Saxon invasion dooms the people of Britain, but a young Arthur is determined to change the course of history.
Wait, King Arthur?
King Arthur. So I decided to bring this back to actually King Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table.
So like medieval knights.
Right. Because
okay.
I always figured, the Kingsmen, that's what they were based off of. Let's go back and make it so that that's the founding ground for all this. So
wait, did Matthew Vaughn do a King Arthur movie?
Did he? Did he do the King Arthur?
I think he did, and it was really bad.
Was that the one with the
guy from
Sons of Anarchy?
The biker. Yeah.
Oh, that was him?
Is it? No. So go on with your pitch. Let me find out.
All right. So now some movie comparisons for this to give you an idea. I try to make it kind of like Mission Impossible, Magnificent Seven, Seven Samurai, Return of the King, Star Warsy feel to it.
Bro, you're just naming good movies. Okay,
cool. I mean, that's what we want, right?
Yeah, of course. All right, I like that already.
Now, cast, I actually did not think about too much.
It's all right.
But for Arthur, actually, with the name popping around a lot, I was like, George McKay would not be a bad idea for this to lead into.
George McKay, okay.
And then one other casting I tried to think of was Merlin,
Mm-hmm.
and I was like, what about Matt Smith?
The Doctor Who Matt
Yeah,
Smith.
yeah. I was like,
Oh, he's a quirky wizardy guy, but
and he's got
okay.
like a sass, like he's got sass, he's got attitude. I was like, I think he might be able to do this. Now some of the other characters I didn't really cast, but I also want to place in all the other knights: Lancelot,
Okay, that's a
Galahad,
lot of people.
Percival.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, okay.
No, all right. This is gonna
It's a
be.
lot of white people, but
Actually, I was just thinking about just casting whoever.
oh yeah,
So
yeah,
I
yeah.
didn't want to keep it to just white, even though that's what history was. But here we go.
All
So
right, what
I don't have
happens?
the full details for everything, but here we go with Act
Oh,
One. Hmm?
this comes out in 2022, whenever this movie came
Yeah,
out.
let's say it'll come out 2021 within these past
Okay,
few years.
and this is a movie.
Yes, I
Oh,
will
okay.
do
You're
this.
committing
I'm
to it.
committing
All
to the
right. So
movie. I'm doing the movie.
okay.
All right.
All right. All right. All right. I'm worried, but I'm intrigued at the same time.
Trust me, I'm worried too because I initially I was like, oh, maybe I should try a TV show with this, but then I was like, no,
Yeah.
I'm gonna
Okay.
try to pitch the movie.
Oof. All right, David.
All right, so Act One, just a general idea. You get an introduction to the kingdom, and it's been taken over by the Saxon invasion. Now the king is dead, but what people don't know is that he had a secret son, Arthur, who was lost, and he ended up becoming a farm boy. And so you get a nice like filler kind of for the background story for this. And story begins about like 20 years after that first invasion. You're in a very different Britain where it's devoid of freedom. It's being everybody's there's widespread famine because of who's ruling.
Mm-hmm.
And so now with that, you see we first get introduced to Merlin and his plans, we understand his ideas and plans to try to take down this regime. And then we get introduced to Arthur. I guess one other note I do want to fill in. While we in medieval history, Merlin was a magician, right? He was a
Mm-hmm.
wizard. Um, I'm definitely trying to stick to reality, and I want him to be more of a scientist. He's gonna be that
Interesting.
Leonardo da Vinci type of character. He's gonna make all the cool gadgets for
Gadgets
these
and
knights
okay,
and
okay.
these guys. So one of the things is he ends up finding Arthur, kind of like in that Obi-Wan Luke Skywalker
Yeah,
sense.
yeah. Okay,
He comes
okay.
he's been kind of watching Arthur all these years and keeping an eye on him. And then finally he's able to approach Arthur after a long time, kind of tries to get him to understand his lineage and all that. And eventually, of course, Merlin and Arthur end up getting Excalibur. That's how Arthur understands a little bit more about his own lineage, things like that.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And this is where they also start to assemble their team and to be able to, come up with that plan to be able to take down this regime.
Okay.
And kind of like in Magnificent Seven or Seven Samurai,
Mm-hmm,
they begin wandering the land, running into different trouble. But in each of that situation, they see the characters and how each knight or character is able to handle the situation, and that's how they recruit these guys.
okay.
And now, Act Two, we get into
Sorry, that was all Act One. That's crazy. All right, go on, go on. I'm sorry, David.
so Act Two is where after they come up with the plan, they their first initial thought is to try to do this as like what do you call it? Like a secret way of like trying to infiltrate into
Espionage, and spy,
try to
assassination.
take down the king so that they can just take over rule and do that. But of course, plan doesn't go according to the way that they want. But
Of course.
at the same time, they also learn that the Saxon army is looking to start invading and expanding out a bit more. So they're setting up their army, doing all that. This group of knights are taking down this first go around, and they end up dispersing for a bit. Now this is I couldn't think of the details for this, but then this goes into Act 3, where we start getting into a bigger war. Now,
Okay.
the Saxon army is about to begin their, campaign. They're about to go out and start their invasions and things like that. But the Kingsmen, these knights, are able to rally together, rally the people up, and form this army for themselves, a bigger army, not just within their own Kingsman group, to be able to battle the Saxon army.
Okay.
Ultimately, it comes down to Arthur versus the Saxon king. And
Do you know who the Saxon King is?
who? Like, who's?
Who's the actor?
Oh, no, I haven't thought of that, but
Okay. Okay. All right. I was just imagining it.
so that battle happens. Of course, Arthur wins. History's changed. Arthur becomes king, and he forms his Knights of the Round Table that he calls his Kingsmen. And from there, I think the next few movies would be different eras or decades
Okay.
of like the future of this organization. Now, I wanted this to be like Kingsman. The first Kingsman group would be more out in the open, because like, how like the Kingsmen that we know they're like the Secret Service. Like, you don't really know them. They're spies.
Okay.
They're an unknown group.
So they become more recluse as they
Right.
get bigger.
So like, I think they start off as a well-known group. They're like Shield. Like, everybody knows who they are. Like,
okay.
they're out there.
Then they become like almost the Illuminati or something.
So, and then I figured like later down the road, there's kind of like a government, like a lot of like issues with their government ruling power and things like that. So, which makes them go underground and kind of like become that secret society that they end up becoming. So that's my quick pitch.
Oh, David, in the pursuit of not being critical, not being, but so I believe you and I are writers. We're writers. We love our crafts, and we want to see each other improve.
Mm-hmm.
How does this, without name alone, connect with like a Matthew Vaughn Kingsman? Like, other than actual King Arthur itself, like what is connecting it? Like, oh, if a stranger were to watch this, they'll know like, oh, that's a Kingsman, that's a Matthew. I could clearly tell this is a prequel.
I mean, I think it would be more so to the style that the movie gets.
Style, right?
Yeah,
which is hard because you can't really pitch a style.
No, you can't. I mean, if I just tell you, hey, Matthew Vaughn is gonna direct it, I feel like that alone would be like, oh, okay, it's gonna be in that same vein. But I think when it comes to the Kingsmen and things like that, it is definitely like one thing in particular is definitely the style that is shot in, all the action. And for this, obviously like for this, I'm counting a lot on the action scenes that are coming out.
Which is hard because you're not pitching.
I'm not choreographing it right now for you.
Yeah.
So a lot of it, though, I think why I think it's gonna be a little bit more fun is it takes the guns out of it, and it's a lot more hand to hand kind of combat.
So it's kind of like the Jamie Foxx Robin Hood kind of version.
Jamie Foxx Robin. Oh, yeah,
with Egerton. Oh, interesting.
I guess so. If you want to say it's like that kind of style, it's not that style, but like I guess.
Yeah. No. But David, when you described the first act alone, I'm like, I thought you were describing the whole movie. I was like, oh, okay, I see it. But like, that's act one. I'm like, bro, really? I like the idea of going before modern time, way before modern times, like knights and stuff like
Mm.
that. But I feel like it's really on the nose to do King Arthur. Like if you told me like, oh, you know what, King Arthur, he's a seasoned king, but he's struggling, and you talked about like the government conspiracy and
Mm.
stuff like that, and he's like, I can't do this anymore. I need my judges, I need my knights in my
Mm.
round table, and something like that. I'll be like, all right, I like this, but I feel like King Arthur is one of those stories that's been beaten to death, done so many times that we don't need to see. It's like Batman's parents dying. We don't need to see him picking up the sword. We
But
know he has the sword.
I mean, you say that, but do you actually know about King Arthur?
Yeah, he gets a sword.
I mean,
it's pretty much always the same.
besides that, do you know everything else? Like, I mean,
We
I
all
don't
have, like,
know,
a
but like,
you know, there's a wizard. We know that he's a young boy, picks up the sword, becomes king. Like, you go to Disney World, that's the first thing you do when you see the sword. You try to pull it out of the
that's
rock.
true. No, I mean that's unfortunate because one of my other, the way I wanted, there's two directions I wanted to go, and it's either gonna be young King Arthur or an older King Arthur, like you said. So that sucks.
I think I would have liked the older King Arthur and he was established.
No, because I
that
was
been real?
wondering, because like for me, the whole title of King's Man
Yeah.
kind of got to me after I started doing this. Because I
Yeah.
know, like in the Kingsman, why it's called the Kingsman in this one. This
Uh-huh.
this particular one is, Ralph Fiennes is the King's Man.
The King's Man. Yeah, yeah.
So
Dumb title. But David, your pitch, I love effort, but I gotta give you the red light. I'm so sorry,
all right,
man.
no, I figured this was a rough one to do.
It's a rough pitch, like especially with action movies, like it's hard to do that. But yeah, I honestly like I do like the idea of going medieval. I think that would have been really interesting. But I think it's the origin story. That's what did it for me.
All right,
Yeah.
fair.
But yeah, David.
You have any other questions?
Oh man. If you told me like if you went like crazy, like I don't know, like to be honest, I feel like if there was a Kingsman sequel or something, I would love to see like Idris Alba in it, stuff like that.
That'd be
I think
crazy.
maybe because it was too in the dark. In my mind I only had Matt Smith and the other guy. So like if you give me a pretty good if you gave me a good villain, I think it'd been easier to like settle down. Like, oh,
fair. There was a
Yeah.
portion of my repitch where I wanted to go like crazy, where where it starts involving like medieval myths and legends.
do it. Look,
But
if you can't go crazy in our pitch,
but the
like,
problem
we're-
is, I feel like if I did that, that would stray away from the Kingsman, because Kingsman
Oh, yeah.
it doesn't deal with magic or like things
No,
like that.
But the question is King Arthur fun without magic?
That's also a point. But that's what I try to make it.
The science.
Yeah, like with Merlin and things
Yeah.
like that. Somehow like twisted in that way. Because I really, my original idea was this:
What's your original? Yeah, I want to hear this.
old King Arthur finds this group, Saxon army is trying to find this what do you call it? Two legendary mythical items: the Holy Grail
Okay.
and
Oh.
the Spear of Longinus.
Oh, okay.
So, and then the Holy Grail is going to give the Saxon kin, like immorality.
Immorality. Yes, the most immoral king. But go on,
And
go on.
also those spears, one of the most crazy, strong mythical items for them.
Okay.
With that, they would end up to, be able to like take over the world and things like that. I wanted to like heighten it to like that.
Oh, dude.
But because of the whole magic side of it, the myth, the legend side of it, I was like, I don't know if
You could have made it like it's a myth, like it's a grail, but it doesn't give you eternal life. It's a spear, but it's not that powerful.
Gotcha.
It's name alone. So if you did that, but
But
honestly,
do you feel like
if
if I did that though, like, oh, here's the grail, they got it. Oh, but it's nothing. Like, don't you feel like that would have fell flat?
maybe, but like, because you know how it's all about story and myth. It's just
Right.
like, oh, the Saxon army got this mythical thing that's part of our history forever, and they destroyed it or something, or like something like that.
Right.
How much more powerful would that be? Like, I would have liked that better.
Yeah,
'cause
dog.
you don't really see.
Yeah, that whole the magic
That
side of it
sounds-
really got me.
It really does, but I really thought you were gonna go for like War II TV show because that would been really fun.
Yeah, I wanted to go like stick to like closer to what the movie actually was.
Yeah,
But then I was like, nah, let's just
Nah,
flip it
I
upside
love
down.
David. I love the courage. I love you flipping the script, but
Yeah,
yeah. I'm sorry, buddy.
it's all good, all good. No, I figured this was.
It's a hard
Yeah.
one.
I think the history portion of it made it a little difficult.
I did. It does. It was it's a nice reference, but it becomes like, oh, you can't really go away from it.
Yeah. All right. Well, the unfortunate red light, people.
Yeah, and I know, David, don't you worry, because next week I'm gonna repitch a terrible movie, and maybe I won't do as well either. But we'll see. We're hopeful.
You know what you want to do next week?
Oh, you forgot what I told you? I'm gonna keep it a surprise. I'm not gonna tell you.
Oh, did you tell me already?
Yeah, we talked about it.
Oh, okay. All right.
But I want to keep that, hype it up for next time.
All right.
But David, where can our wonderful audience find us?
You guys can look at the description below, and you guys can always find us on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. Just look for Repitch Podcast. And if you guys got any suggestions, you guys like us, don't like us, you guys got movie repitch ideas, or if you guys just have any topic ideas for us, shoot us an email at repitchpodcast@gmail.com. And as always, big shout out to our friend Joe Yoo for helping us all out with the sound editing.
Yeah, and again, thank you guys so much for tuning in. And yeah, thank you for being with us for over 90 episodes.
Yes.
That's insane. But yeah, let's wrap it up with a quote from this movie.
Yep.
Let's end this as gentlemen. After all, manners maketh man.
Classic line.
Which was said by the villain, which is so stupid. Why would you that's like the quote that they use throughout the series, and oh, they got it from the first bad guy. They fall. I hate that. I hate that so much. But guys, we'll see you guys later.
See you.